So we're in the studio today and we have a special guest. We're going to talk about an important subject, and you don't know what it is yet, but stick around and you're going to find out. Hey, Dave Edwards, Treasure Valley Dave here, and today we are speaking with my go-to lender, Darin Ramp, and he's over at the Willamette Valley Bank, and he's got some important information that he's going to share with us. And you know, if you guys have any questions you want him to answer, just leave those in the comments. And remember, we can't help you get moved up here unless you reach out, raise your hand, send us an email, a text. I don't care what it is. Just let us know that you need our help and that we can help you. And we've all been through it before. We've all come from someplace else, and we know what the whole process is, and we have the experience. Darin, how's it going?
It's going great, Dave. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for stopping in and seeing us this morning.
Absolutely, pleasure.
Lending is such a huge part of the whole home buying process, from the planning stage to getting down to the closing day.
Absolutely.
We have, a lot of people that have questions about that, but I know there's some lending stuff in the news lately. What is it that I can't remember?
There is some exciting news. With rising home prices, they have rose the conforming loan limits, which means easier qualifying once you get above that mark.
Okay. And what does that mean for average Joe and Jane?
So basically easier to qualify at a higher amount,
Okay.
a higher purchase price.
And with prices up here going up, those higher purchase prices aren't because you're all hoity-toity, but that's just what prices have gone up to.
Yeah, supply and demand, absolutely.
I'm curious what the new loan amount is and maybe what it was before.
Okay, so we went up from 548, 250 to 600. So not a huge increase, and that's what lenders are doing. It's not out in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the investors who make up these loan limits. They haven't came out and said this is what they're going to be. So it could even go up higher than that come 2022.
So it's a more traditional loan that's now higher for your average buyer.
Correct.
Okay,
Less
that's
down
great.
payment, minimum down instead of your 20% down, and better interest rate.
So that might not be as important for everybody that's buying in Canyon County, but certainly over in Ada County, the median price is like $125,000 more than Canyon County.
Right.
So what you're saying could be very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, it could mean the difference between qualifying and not qualifying.
That's a big difference.
Yeah.
So, Darin, what are the interest rates? What do you think the interest rates are going to be doing in the next couple of months to the end of the year? Should people jump on it, or?
I believe so. All indications are with the inflation that interest rates are going to go up. The big question is how much and exactly when. There's a lot going on in the economy, obviously with COVID, jobless claims, and there's a lot going on with that.
Well, let's say that's the case. If someone either has been out of work or had a job change or something where their credit, whatever the situation happens to be, if somebody needs to pay something off or rebuild their credit in some way, is it worth reaching out to somebody like you for help with that, or what should they do?
Absolutely. First stop, because we have things we can do to optimize those credit scores, and it might just be paying down a credit card a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
So paying something completely off, is that better than just paying it down?
That doesn't always do you the best service when you're talking rate or credit scores.
Okay.
Oh,
Interesting.
it's almost counterintuitive. So what you think might be the right thing to do might not be.
Correct. So we use like a rapid rescore simulator. It looks at your scores, your credit report, balances on credit cards, and it will spit out a number. It'll say you can get your scores up to here by doing this, this, and this.
And is this just your bank, or is this a common thing throughout all of lending?
Our credit pulling agencies that we use have that, so we're not the only one that does have that, but not everybody utilizes it. So it's no cost to come to us, get a credit pulled, and analyze it and see what we can do.
So Darin, if our buyers coming in, and maybe they're first time home buyers or something, can their parents help them out somehow?
Absolutely. You're able to get a gift for your down payment and closing costs from any family member that is blood related.
Okay.
Sometimes we can make some other things work with extra documentation and explanation, but aunts, uncles, grandmothers,
And can this gift money be just a bag of money that's been underneath the mattress for a while? Or?
No, absolutely not. We have to source it. So it has to be, we go back 2 months, without getting into too much detail. We look at 2 months previous, and will require explanation on deposit.
So does that mean you're looking at where it's coming from?
Absolutely.
So that person, if it's my mom who would give me some, then she has to prove where it was for the last 2 months.
Yep, so we would say, Mom, we need a bank statement showing you have the funds to gift, sign a gift letter, and then we would obviously need your deposit showing that it was deposited into your account.
I see. All right, Mom, you know what to do.
Right. So, and that kind of makes me think too, is like there's so much documentation that the lenders need when I'm applying for a loan.
Absolutely.
Is this, and why, what is the point? Can't you just say that I have a job and then, you know, I got some money in the savings account? Why would I need more than that?
It's all investor guidelines. So who's actually loaning that money out? They make up these guidelines. Part of it is our government, obviously.
Right.
And that's their requirements, and we have to go by them. Willamette Valley Bank goes strictly by those guidelines, though. We don't throw in extra guidelines on top of their guidelines. A lot of lenders do. Credit score requirement, documentation that's needed that really we wouldn't ask for, that kind of thing.
So Darin, I have people that come up from, say, California, and they want to use their lender back home, but we're finding that sellers up here, they don't really like that so much, and some of them are even saying, well, I want substantially more earnest money if you're going to use an out-of-state seller or loan officer. Are you seeing that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's kind of a feel good, and because there can be major issues with that. For one, you can't just walk into their bank branch or mortgage office and say what's going on.
Right.
There's distance in between, and anytime there's distance in between, there can be complications and problems that don't get resolved.
So, speaking of communications, who is it all that the lender talks with? Obviously with the buyer, but who else in the process?
Yeah, buyers, realtors, builders, title companies. We kind of need things from all of them, so we are in communication with all of them.
So it would be kind of nice to have someone that's local that maybe has relationships already established and that can pick up the phone, and you don't have to worry about, gosh, what time zone is it?
Absolutely, yeah. And a team is a necessity. You have to have a team, a good team.
Right.
Communication is key throughout the whole process.
If somebody was a first-time home buyer, are there any loan programs for them that would be a real advantage here in Idaho?
Absolutely. So there's a few programs, down payment assistance and closing cost assistance, because those are the two costs when you're buying a home, when you're a buyer. Ours in Idaho, you only need 0.5% of your purchase price.
Oh,
Really?
wow.
So $500 on 100,000. That has to be your own funds. That can't be a gift from a family member. You can still get a gift from a family member to help and get down payment assistance, but you have to have that 0.5% of your own funds.
That seems doable.
How does that work, a down payment assistance? So you only come in with your 0.5%?
Correct. Yep. You come in with your 0.5%, and then you get grant money through the state, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Does that convert into the loan, or is it a grant that's
So there is a up to 3.5% that is recapturable, but there's no payment on it, so it's a forgivable grant.
Isn't that
And
one
then-
of those things that they have to live in the house for so long?
Yes, and you have to be in the mortgage. So if you refinance or sell, they're going to recapture a portion of that at closing when you pay that loan off. And then there's also a second mortgage that is amortized over 10 years, and it's a minimal amount.
So with a different population of people, let's say people that are moving up here from out of state, tell us about what requirements they need to get a house up here.
If you're a remote worker right now because of COVID, we do need an email. It just has to be an email, it doesn't have to be a letter, that you are able to work remotely and it will not affect your pay and position.
So if they're currently working from home in California, they just come up here, if they have the same employer, the same job, nothing's changed work-wise, it's just easy peasy lemon squeezy.
That's where we're at right now. That could change, but as of right now and since COVID started, that's all we need.
Nice. Okay. Let's say that they're not lucky enough to be working from home.
Yeah, if they're looking to gain employment up here, we
Right.
would need just an offer letter with a start date on it, and we can close your loan 60 days before you actually start your job. So you don't have to come up here, live in a hotel until you start your job and have a first paycheck. You can actually get an offer letter from your employer, provide that to us, and we can close your loan 60 days before. And that's for W-2 employees. You get into 1099 and self-employment, it changes a little bit.
Ah,
because
okay.
You have to have your business up here to live here. And we're talking primary residence. You can still get a second home up here, live wherever you're at, out of state, and keep your job there and just have a second home here. It just changes the requirements as far as down payment.
That's an interesting
credit
thought
score.
too. So if I'm in California and I guess if I can financially afford it, then I can buy a house up here as a second home, and then I can have both houses. Then I can sell that one at my leisure. I can move up here at my leisure.
Absolutely.
I don't have to, play that game where I might end up being homeless for a couple of weeks during the transition.
Yep, absolutely. And it's really not that much of a difference. The down payment's a little different, minimum down payment. Interest rate's really not that much different for a second home. It's a little higher, but not a whole lot to where it would really hurt you.
Wow, that's a really nice option. So this 20%, is this the magic number to get rid of that PMI?
Correct. Mortgage insurance, yep. So FHA is considered just mortgage insurance, and then when you hear private PMI is private mortgage insurance, that's for your conventional loans that aren't government loans, but it's all the same thing.
So if I can come in with a certain amount of money, it would behoove me to bring that up to the 20%?
20% is key, yes.
Because otherwise that insurance premium gets paid monthly in my payment?
Correct. The more you get closer to that 20%, the less it is per month. And the better your credit score is, the less it is per month. But it's still a payment per month that you have to deal with until...
And that could be $150, $200 a month?
Correct. Could be.
Wow. So it's a good tip there, huh? Trying to save you money. I'm in California and I can't, move up here for a few years, and maybe I could buy a house to rent out until I'm ready. What kind of things do I have to consider for, financial purposes for that?
We need to show reserves. So you have to show that you have some reserves in case you don't have a renter in there and you have to make the payment on your own. There's all kinds of ways we can make it work. There's some dead set things that we can't, that you have to have. Like I said, reserves you have to have. Down payment, obviously, and credit score requirements are a little higher on investment properties.
Would it still be considered their primary residence even though they are going to use it as a rental before they move in? Or would it be sort of like you're buying a second home or an investment?
Correct. So the second home versus investment is, are you going to be renting it for a certain amount of time out of the year?
Mm-hmm.
Is there going to be a renter in there? Then it's got to be considered an investment. If you're going to come up and stay in it for a majority of the year and then maybe rent it out a little bit, then you're okay second home.
Interesting. Okay. That's great. And then after they move in, let's say it's, a year later, would you recommend they refinance it as their primary? Or
depending on where current rates are. I mean,
Okay.
if they had a higher rate because it was an investment and rates are lower and it makes sense financially, then otherwise leave it as it is. But you would want to get your homeowner's exemption filed so you can you're not paying those investment property taxes.
So Darin, what you're saying is there's a difference in the property taxes that you pay on an investment versus a primary home.
Correct. Yes, you do get a huge break on and then typically it's about half of your monthly or annual cost. So
that's outstanding. Yeah, and I believe that's mostly just an Idaho thing. I'd never experienced that coming from Washington. There was no homeowner exemption available to me, and so that was a really interesting change coming here. That I think I saved $100,000 or $125,000 for the tax assessed value of my home. So I didn't have to pay as much.
So, I was just sitting here thinking, when you guys do call up here and say, hey, Dave, we're interested in moving to the Treasure Valley, one of the first things we do is Maureen here, she's going to schedule a Zoom call, and we're all going to be on that. And if you're thinking you might not be paying all cash or you want to explore getting a small mortgage, we can get Darin on that same Zoom call. And we can talk about, whatever, and get all your questions answered at one time, at least all the big questions. What kind of mistakes can we avoid doing by talking with you first and not later?
one of the huge things I've seen is if there is a lower credit score involved, if someone's worried about their credit score or they're using a different scoring model to look at their credit score, it might not be the same credit score as when we pull it. So that's a huge part. And then if they say we're selling our home here and they want to pay off a bunch of debt, I would say let me run a rapid rescore first and see where it's best to place those funds instead of just throwing all of them, paying them off, because it might hurt your scores.
So credit scores and the ability to borrow money isn't so much about, that you have, like no debt,
Right.
but it's how responsible you are at paying your debt.
Correct, yes.
So if you've paid all your debt off, you're not showing the lender how you handle debt, you just paid it off.
Correct, yeah. It's two things really is obviously on-time payments and not maxing out your credit cards is really the big thing.
Darin, to get all this information and get in touch with you, is there any obligation to the buyer if they just want to get that information? Can they just call you, or is it already like they're nailed into something and they have to pull the credit?
Absolutely not. We can run over scenarios, basic scenarios, but really to dive into and say we might need to do this to optimize your buying power or whatever, then I do have to have an application. It's always best to apply. It's not going to affect your credit scores that much unless you're out there trying to get a bunch of credit cards, auto loans all at the same time. That would throw up red flags to the creditors, and they would think something's happening financially, and that's kind of what drives your scores down.
So does that mean if somebody is considering buying a house, actually not talking to a realtor first, or simultaneously having a realtor and a lender in place?
Absolutely.
Is that-
Yeah, we all work as a team, and that's what it takes to make the process as smooth as possible.
So we had this one person that was a victim of identity theft and didn't even know about it until they started the lending process. And that slowed them down by like 3 months. So to me, that says it's good to talk. If you're going to be buying a house at some point in the next, half a year or so,
Yeah.
get in touch with the lender in case there's something that comes up that you need to fix.
Yeah, it's never too early to reach out and see what you qualify for, and just have that at ease that we know we qualify for this, we're good to go. Yes, we might have to provide an extra pay stub or might have to re-pull credit, which will not affect your scores, minimally, I should say. There's all kinds of other factors that could affect your scores. So that's a huge myth that people think if I talk to 2 lenders, because I'm shopping, that it's going to drive my scores way down, and that's not the case.
Loan shopping, I have heard about that. Is there a specific time range where you can kind of shop for loans?
The rule of thumb is 45 days. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of other things that go on with a credit score. Creditors report, and maybe, hopefully it didn't happen, but sometimes it does, where you missed a payment and were 30 days late. That's going to obviously affect your scores, or you paid something down, or you purchased something and you have a new trade line, a new obligation, a new debt in that 45 days. So there's all kinds of scenarios and things that can change that credit score.
Let's say that you are down in California and you just sold your house and you got a big pocket full of cash, and you could spend all of that on your house up here. So when you get up here, you'd have no loan payments, but that doesn't leave you, very much left in your savings. We have had clients that have actually got a small mortgage, and that way they can keep some money in the bank for, a new car or
Emergencies.
furniture, emergencies, sure. So is it a smart thing? I mean, does it, at the end of the day, does it cost someone a whole lot of extra money to have that, to be able to keep that cash in reserves and have a small mortgage?
I think that's a great option. Me personally, I'd feel more safe if I did have a cushion in my savings account for unexpected expenses, especially when you're moving. Everything seems to cost more than what you plan for. You don't think of everything.
Right.
And what we would do is just say, hey, we have this much, and say, okay, we'll figure out where you're comfortable with your payment. Where do you want that payment? And we can play with those numbers and get it to where you're comfortable, but you still have some reserves.
That seems smart. Because I'm just thinking, if like you move up here and you put all your money on the house, and then your car breaks down, or something happens, or maybe you get your property tax bill, and then it's like maybe you're in the position you might lose your house because you didn't have that $10,000 available to take care of a problem.
Absolutely, all kinds of things can happen.
So I talk with a lot of people, and they say that, I do want to buy a house, I am going to need a mortgage, but I don't want to bother anybody at this point. Maybe later. And usually that later turns out to be like once they fall in love with the house, and then they need the whole process to like happen immediately. And Darin is very good about making things happen quickly, but it would be just so much better, and we could be on the lookout for any little hiccups that need to be addressed if we talk with our lender at the beginning of the process. Do you see people saying that, oh, I don't want to bother you, but they really should be bothering you?
Yeah, its main thing goes back to credit again. They don't want their credit pulled for some reason. It doesn't do anyone any justice. We can do scenarios all day long, but they might have something in their profile that changes that whole scenario. So it's best to start early, less urgency at the end. The more time we have with the mortgage process, the less stressful it's going to be on everybody.
And there might be something that they don't even know about that will come up when you start getting their application and going through that.
Absolutely.
That needs addressed. So don't worry about bothering anybody. That's what we're all here for. And it's going to make your process smoother. So,
And it doesn't cost you anything to apply. We don't charge fees for you applying for a mortgage.
Are you kidding me?
Before the buyer is going to give you a call, what kind of paperwork should they have handy, or what kind of information do you need?
So on the application, we need 2 years of residence history, employment history, and then we have to back that up with documentation. So 2 years W-2s, 30 days pay stubs, and then bank statements of 2 months bank statements. Some of that stuff doesn't have to be immediate when you're applying. It's just a have it ready kind of thing.
Cool.
Nice. And if you are, if you're a regular employee that you get paid on a W-2, but what if you're into sales or something and you're on a 1099? Do you need so much more documentation that it's not even worth it?
We still go back 2 years, but it does change things on when we're averaging your income to maximize your buying power. There is differences with that. Obviously, if you're self-employed, you're going to show loss or have write-offs. That comes into play when you're self-employed. We have to show a stable business without a lot of loss. That's another thing with timing. The more time we have if you're self-employed, the better off, because then we can manipulate that stuff. Say, like this time of year, you're going to file in December, but you're not going to move in until spring.
Right.
We can work with your accountant and make sure that you're not exposing yourself too much.
Darin, when you said that you look back 2 years for their employment history, what if somebody hasn't had that particular job that they're in now for 2 full years? What do you do then?
There's a lot that goes into that. It depends on how you're paid. Are you W-2, 1099, or on your own business? And the ways we can average that income are different. Big gaps of employment that are unexplained are a problem, obviously. If you're going from a W-2 position, same line of work, just different company, that's an easy transition, easily explainable. It just really comes down to the explanation and stability of that income.
That's great.
Yeah. So what if you are self-employed and you're still in the same line of work, but you maybe move from one area to another, so you have like different clientele or something?
Absolutely, that comes into play. Where are you going to get your clientele? If you leave a construction business down there, you're leaving your flow of work, right? And you're coming up here, that's going to be a problem.
Would it be a strategy if you are self-employed in construction in California, for example, come up here, maybe work for somebody else, get that W-2 paycheck started?
That's the easiest way to go about it, and it's kind of a case-by-case thing. If they wanted to open up their business up here, a longevity or a slow transition we can justify. It just comes down to what are you going to do up here, where are you going to get your clientele, and the stability of income here. Is your business going to drop in half of its income from moving up here? It's a transition phase. As
we kind of get to the end of our little, I don't know, our great time just hanging out, one, make sure that you raise your hand, send us an email, send us a text telling us how we can help you and answer your questions. And then two, Maureen's going to get that Zoom call scheduled. And like I say, if there's even a chance you might need to have a lender involved, Darin's going to be on this call with us. And we'll answer your questions, the big questions at least, and get the process started just right then and there. Thanks for coming by today. If you've enjoyed this, please go ahead and share with your friends and family that might get something out of this. And make sure you like and subscribe. We come out with a new video every week. And wow, until next time, this is Treasure Valley Dave, looking forward to helping you get home.